Alrighty, I am pleased to be joined by Fidel Barraza, the host of the East West Football Podcast. How's it going?
JJ, appreciate it. Thank you. It's going well. How about you?
It's going well. It's going well for me as well. Thanks again for coming on kind of notice. But of course, you're a football podcast, so if you want to talk more about that before we start recording, how you started podcasting, just stuff similar to that.
Yeah, no problem. I'll give you the short version of it. So I am one of the hosts for the East West Football Podcast. My other co-host, Jerry Martinez, is out in Texas. Kendall Whitley's out in North Carolina. Pretty much we met on Instagram, and we've been doing this for about a year and a half. We never met in person. Everything's been remotely, Zoom, phone calls, and things like that. So, and then we actually do have a website, EastWestFootballNetwork.com. We have a lot of talented writers that write about different NFL divisions, college football, scouts, you name it, we cover it. EastWestFootballNetwork.com is a website, and I definitely recommend that.
Okay. Yeah, I'll put a link in the description down below for everyone. So if they want to go check that out, they can. Of course, the football season now, at the time of this recording, it's Wednesday night. So by the time this comes out, the Chiefs and Buccaneers game the Buccaneers and Cowboys game will already be out. But just before we actually talk about that, what do you think about this NFL season? You know, just like what's your thoughts going into this year?
Well, COVID is still very much alive, and I think the NFL is going to be dealing with that the whole year, if not even more now, because we're going to have fans back in the stands. People or players that are vaccinated, they're not required to wear a mask, and you can still get the virus even if you're vaccinated. So it's going to be very interesting. But the NFL was able to pull it off last year. I don't see why they wouldn't be able to do it this year.
Yeah, it's crazy because the NFL was one of the only leagues not to cancel their season or postpone it because of COVID. So that was really good. However, there were so many different type of methods that they tried over the year. I mean, with it was interesting too because the Ravens during Thanksgiving around that weekend had so many positive tests, and they got the game moved to Wednesday. But the Broncos, who had all their quarterbacks test positive, had to be out or were in the COVID protocol, they didn't cancel the game, which was interesting. But do you think something will happen just like that? Because I think the reason why the NFL didn't really move the Broncos game was because at the time the Broncos weren't really playoff contenders. Mm-hmm. But do you think something will happen like that this year?
Well, with the additional week that the NFL added onto the season, maybe players get sick and they're not actually able to play the game, they might move it towards the end of the year. I read a couple different things. I heard if you have so many players that test positive for COVID, you forfeit the game. So don't know exactly how that's going to work. But I did read something like that. But look, it's only natural. People are going to get COVID. They are. It's just a reality of the whole situation, right? Especially playing a contact sport like football is, and having the fans there again. All last year, pretty much only some stadiums had some fans in them, but besides that, it was empty stadiums.
Yeah, and I think the Chiefs were the only really team to start the year that actually had fans, and that was a big advantage too because even though they had 15,000 fans, it seemed like they had 60 or 70,000 fans there just because of how crazy those Chiefs fans are, just how invested they are in their team. But also it's interesting too because of last year. Players, even if they test positive, can get COVID twice. We've seen that. I think Cam Newton tested positive for COVID twice.
Lamar Jackson,
tested positive for COVID twice. Do you think? Really, do you think there'll be another player that could test positive twice? And what do you think the team what do you think the league will actually do?
Well, if you think about it, players that are not vaccinated, like Cam Newton's not vaccinated, I believe. He only got it once, right? But he can get it again. Lamar Jackson's got it, a couple times already. I know some teams are at 100% capacity as far as being vaccinated goes. I think that number is going to keep on going higher, but at the same time, you're still going to have players that they're not going to want to get vaccinated. Look, it's your choice. You want to get vaccinated or not. But the whole matter of the situation is that COVID's here, and now there's like a lot of other variants that that are coming alive, I guess you can say. So I do see possibly players getting the virus twice.
Okay, yeah, and it's also going to be interesting to see how the NFL deals with them. They'll probably just say, you're in the COVID protocols for 10 days, and you'll have to miss at least one game. But did you have anything else to add to that?
Well, JJ, let's just think about it. So let's just say your team plays on Sunday, right? And you're playing that Thursday night football game. What are we talking about? We're talking about 4 days, right? So you're potentially you're going to miss 2 weeks of NFL action. It's just, it's probably going to happen. We just don't know what team and whatnot. One of the teams last year, what you just talked about it earlier, the Baltimore Ravens, they're the ones that they had one of the biggest deals with COVID last year, and also the Tennessee Titans, I believe. And then also, Tennessee, Mike Vrabel's already got COVID. Ryan Tannehill had COVID. Like 4 other players had it. So, it's bound to happen. So it'll be interesting to see how the NFL deals with it. But look, they dealt with it last year, so they know how to kind of move around. So we'll see.
Yeah. And like I said, hopefully it doesn't happen, but I feel like you can't delay the inevitable. It's going to probably happen. I hope it doesn't happen. Or at least it doesn't happen very much. It just once in a while. It looks like you're a Raiders fan. You got a lot of Raiders stuff in the background. I know they opened up the season against the Ravens. How do you think that game's going to go? And how do you just think the Vegas season's going to go this season?
Well, I'm not really a Raider fan. I just like to hang up Raider stuff behind me. No, I'm just kidding. No, I'm a diehard Raider fan. I think the Raiders have a chance to beat the Ravens Monday night. Now, I'm not trying to be a Raiders homer, but I'm going to be. I think this team is, improved drastically as far as, fixing that defense. I think Yannick Ngakoue is going to be huge for the Raiders defensive line. Max Crosby is going to have another strong year, I believe. And then, new defense coordinator, Gus Bradley. I think he's going to work, some things with that defense. The only thing that I'm worried about is the offensive line. Mm-hmm. We saw a huge turnover, during the offseason, so it'll be interesting to see how they mesh. And I believe none of them played during the preseason, so I think it's going to be a very interesting game in Vegas. I was actually at the stadium about 3-4 weeks ago for the first practice in that stadium. It's a beautiful stadium. It's going to be really loud. It's going to be Monday Night Football, so I think the Raiders are going to beat the Ravens. Wow.
And the one thing about the Raiders that kind of scares me a little bit is their secondary is kind of their weak spot. And just their whole, I know they added a lot of pieces to the defense, like bringing in Yannick Ngakoue from the Ravens, which was, I think, a great signing on their part. I just think that they've got a great offense and I think Derek Carr is solid, especially when you get weapons around him like Darren Waller and Josh Jacobs. And we'll see what happens with Henry Ruggs. I think he's going to probably finally break out this season.
I'm going to give you a name to watch out for that I believe is going to have a bigger year than Henry Ruggs. Brian Edwards, receiver out of South Carolina. He dealt with a lot of injuries last year. He's poised to have a big year. And from what I've been reading, what I saw, Derek loves to throw to him. And then also to Darren Waller. I think those two guys, alongside with Josh Jacobs, they're going to have big years.
I think Darren Waller is a very good tight end. It seems like no one really talks about him that much, but to be honest with you, I think he's clearly a top 5 tight end. I think he's the 3rd best tight end in the league.
I believe so too.
Only behind Travis Kelce and George Kittle. I think he's a little over Mark Andrews, but I think Darren Waller's a very good tight end. Josh Jacobs is a very underrated running back. It seems like the Raiders don't necessarily like to run the ball that much, which I think if I would give the ball to Jacobs more, but did you have anything else to add to that?
Well, so here's the thing. So the last couple of years that they've tried to run the ball towards the end of the year, Josh Jacobs has been hurt. So now bringing another running back like Kenyon Drake, I think is going to help that situation out as well. They've worked out multiple running backs. So, love Josh Jacobs, one of my favorite players on the Raiders team, but towards the end of the year, it looks like he gets a little bit hurt. So we'll see.
Yeah. And I think in 2019, when he was a rookie, he should have probably won the Offensive Rookie of the Year. I think he got snubbed. But I think he's a very good running back, and it's going to be exciting to watch that Raiders team. Do you think the Raiders make the playoffs because of the AFC West? First of all, the AFC is really tough, but then you add the AFC West, and that's even tougher with the Chiefs, Broncos, Chargers are going to be good too. What do you think the Raiders, do you think they make the playoffs this season?
They got to make the playoffs. If not, Mike Mayock's job's going to be on the line. John Gruden's job won't be on the line, of course, because he's got a 10-year contract. Derek Carr, it's going to be a very important year for him, too. Look, he's got all the offensive weapons I think he needs. The question is, who's going to be your number one wideout? It's going to be Ruggs, Edwards. Renfro is a slot guy. So we'll see. I personally think they are, just because last year they were so close. You think about that Miami game. that fluke of a Hail Mary that Ryan Fitzpatrick threw, and and then the Charger game when Derek got hurt, and then Marcus Mariota went in. He had a tremendous game. They almost won. I think they're going to make the playoffs.
Yeah. I don't know. The thing about the Raiders is I know Derek Carr is a good quarterback, but it seems like he doesn't take that next step. I don't know what it is. I think like I said, he's a good quarterback. I just don't think that the last few years he's been able to really do a whole lot. But again, he hasn't really had the weapons like he has this year. And again, the AFC is just stacked, I think. And do you think the Raiders are the second best team outside the Chiefs? Because the Chargers, and even the Broncos could probably make a good case too.
Well, so they split the season series last year with the Chargers. They swept the Broncos. So I mean, the only other real, I guess you can say, good team in that division, well, besides the Chiefs, is going to be the Chargers. Justin Herbert had a tremendous year last year, won Rookie of the Year. This team has the pieces, but their deal has been staying healthy. So I mean, that's still a question mark. Can they still, can they stay healthy? And if so, I mean, they're going to give the Raiders some trouble.
Yeah. Yeah, it seems like too the Chargers are always that team where they're always like 7-9, 8-8, and of course you can't do that now with 17 games. And it seems like they're always injured. They're always that team. They're either under the radar or over the radar. And it seems like every time we think the Chargers are going to be really good, they're not good. It seems like that when we don't really pay attention to them, they somehow make the playoffs or something like that and make a run. The Chargers are a very fickle team, and maybe it'll be different now with Justin Herbert instead of Phillip Rivers, but I don't know. We'll see what happens there. I'm pretty excited though, just because the AFC is stacked.
Yeah.
Now, not necessarily the NFC. I think there's a lot. They're not quite as good. But speaking of the NFC, of course, tomorrow the Buccaneers and Cowboys game. What do you expect to see out of that contest?
I expect the Bucs to dominate the Cowboys tomorrow night. I really do. Tom Brady and the Bucs team they've had a full offseason now. When you think about it, last year, Tom was coming into a new team. Everything was new to him, right? I mean, he had to move, new coordinator, new head coach, new teammates. Now that he's actually had a full season, underneath them and a full, training camp and all that. I mean, I don't know if you read, but he was dealing with a bum knee all last year. And he played great. I mean, for the most part, right? Yeah, of course, he had some bad games. You're still trying to get used to it. But with that being said, this Bucs team, I feel, is going to repeat this year.
Yeah. And I think really the top teams in the NFC are the Buccaneers, Rams, and I think the Packers will be back to where they were. They had a kind of a crazy offseason with Aaron Rodgers, but yeah, I think the NFC is nowhere near the AFC is, and the Buccaneers have a great chance. I mean, they brought back all their players. I personally think the Rams are the best team in the AFC just because they finally got Matt Stafford, a quarterback that a quarterback that Sean McVay actually doesn't have to do what he did with Jared Goff. But I mean, that's kind of anything can really happen, especially in the NFL. But I'm comfortable saying the Rams and the Buccaneers are the top teams. What do you think about the Rams this season?
Well, I mean, they're one of the best teams in the NFC, and I mean, the only thing that was really missing last year was the quarterback, right? I mean, Jared Goff, he didn't play horrible, but he didn't play good either, So I mean, I think they're going to be really good. Now, obviously, the whole running back situation with Cam Akers going down, and they traded for Sony Michel. I think Darrell Henderson's still dealing with an injury as well. They're going to be one of the most interesting teams in football as well. And they play Chicago, I believe, Sunday Night Football. So that'll be a very interesting game to see where the Rams line up, especially against that Bears defense.
Yeah, the thing about Jared Goff, though, he was serviceable, but he just, even with the team that he had around him, now the defense is stacked with the Rams. Their offense not necessarily as good as their defense, but they're still good. And, of course, Sean McVay, one of the brightest minds in the NFL. But it seems like Jared Goff wasn't quite Sean McVay's guy, and it seemed like Jared Goff was a system quarterback more than anybody else because he did so good because he had Sean McVay, and it just kind of seemed like it was all Sean McVay, and maybe that's not exactly all on Jared Goff, but just the way it happened, and especially during the playoff game, they started John Wolford over Jared Goff, which was interesting. And it just kind of showed you then that Sean McVay didn't have all the confidence in Jared Goff as much as he should have been. But I mean, it's really, we can't really decide on what exactly was the deal, but it just didn't seem like Sean McVay was all in on Jared Goff. I mean,
yeah. Well, I mean, and I agree with you, but now we're really going to see if Sean McVay's really offensive guru. Now that you're got Matt Stafford, if the offense doesn't do well, I mean, are we going to give him another excuse? The quarterback? Because they got the quarterback now, right? So to me, I mean, it kind of goes both ways. I know Jared Goff's not the most talented quarterback in the NFL. But Sean McVay, I mean, I think some of that falls on him too. You got to scheme your quarterback, right, to get some wins. You got to build a game plan. I mean, which he did. I mean, they went to the Super Bowl, and I know they had a great defense, but Jared definitely helped out.
Yeah, and like I said, I'm not super, like, right now it seems like his career is going to die because he's going to be in Detroit, and they are clearly tanking because you can see how bad that team is. And yeah, just like I said, we'll see what Sean McVay is, but I have very good confidence because of how good Matt Stafford was. And you know how good he was even in Detroit, which was basically the wastelands. And I think I'm very bright on the Rams. I think they can be one of the best teams. And again, after the season was over last year, after they made that trade for Matt Stafford, I said the Ravens and Rams is my Super Bowl prediction. But I mean, the Buccaneers could do it, and the Packers could do it as well. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I just like the Bucs just because they're bringing all their starters back, right? And I mean, they have a lot of depth. And then Tom, I mean, he had a full off season to me, which is really important, right? And then him saying that he had a knee issue the whole year last year and he played the way he did and they won the Super Bowl. And I get they had a really great defense, but we can't take away anything from Tom.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, like I said, Tom Brady dealt with all that injury and of course, all COVID, so he couldn't really practice with his teammates that much. And it just seemed like, everything was against him, but yet he still won the Super Bowl. And even though I wasn't exactly rooting for the Buccaneers to win the Super Bowl, it was still impressive to watch them, blow out the Chiefs. So, oh, sorry, what was that?
No. I was just gonna say, actually, last year before the season started, I picked the Bucs to win the Super Bowl, so I just want to give myself a pat in the back. Good.
Wow, that's really good because I thought the Saints were the best team in that division. I didn't know what to expect from Tampa Bay. Was Tom Brady just good because of Belichick or what? I mean, it ended up being the opposite, where Brady looked really good and Belichick didn't look good at all because they didn't even make the playoffs. But speaking of the Patriots, they have Mac Jones, new quarterback. Cam Newton's no longer there. What do you expect from New England this season?
One of the most interesting teams in the NFL, and I'm really excited to see them play against Miami on Sunday. I guess you can say this is a bold prediction, but I have New England winning that division. Just because the offseason they had, I mean, they had a bad year last year, but I mean, think about how much they had to deal with COVID, the quarterback changes and all that. So I like New England to win the division.
Wow. And I think most people, including myself, would say Buffalo just to play it safe. But I do think and it's interesting with Josh Allen, I feel like he was just an average quarterback before they added Stephon Diggs, and the whole team just Josh Allen became a really good quarterback after Stephon Diggs. But I mean, New England is interesting. I don't mind. I didn't hate what they did in free agency, but I thought they overpaid for Nelson Aguilar. I think they overpaid for, they didn't necessarily overpay for Hunter Henry because I think he's a great tight end, but I think they overpaid for a lot of players, and I still don't think they have a number one receiver. I mean, they still have N'Keal Harry as well, but I think Nelson Aguilar is more of a number two. Yeah. They have two good tight ends. They have a pretty solid running game with James White. I just don't know what to expect from New England. I'm just going to say 8-9 just to play it safe. But I mean, Belichick is a great coach. I think even without Brady, I think he's still one of the best coaches of all time. It's just New England's a very tough team to predict because we don't know how good Mac Jones is going to be, even though Mac Jones is a very smart quarterback and he doesn't make a lot of mistakes. But again, that was with Alabama, who had a very good roster around him. So, I mean, we could really see anything. I just think that New England's going to be an average team. I don't expect a lot from them, but if they make the playoffs and win the division, that definitely looks good on Belichick, even if the Buccaneers go to the Super Bowl again.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it's gonna be tough, but I think Mac's poised to have a big year, and I actually have him winning Offensive Rookie of the Year. So I mean, we'll see, right? I mean, he did outbeat Cam Newton, former NFL MVP, but that's a whole different topic on its own. So
yeah, I think the whole Cam Newton situation. I heard that I don't know if this was actually true, but I think one of the former Patriots players basically said that Mac Jones was helping Cam Newton with the playbook, which I can't really see that because, I mean, even though this was Mac Jones's first year, so I didn't really know if that was true, but maybe it was. But it just goes to I mean, Cam Newton, I think his career as a starter is done. You saw how long it took him to sign with New England before last season began. And I can't really see Cam Newton as but where do you think sign during this season?
The most logical destination for Cam to land is Washington, just because the former head coach, Ron Rivera, their quarterback situation is a little bit off, right? I mean, you do have Ryan Fitzpatrick, but it's either Fitzmagic or Fitztragic, right? We don't know which one you're going to get going week by week. So to me, if I had to pick a team, it would probably be there. The other one that makes sense is just Dallas, because they're saying Dak's healthy and then he's not healthy. I mean, and a backup role, of course, but we'll see if he wants, if he wants to do that. He actually said he was going to have an announcement on Friday. He was going to go like on IG Live because he said he had some things to get off his chest. So not too sure what that's about.
Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't know anything about that, but I think, Washington makes sense. But I feel like if Washington really wanted to sign Cam Newton, they would have already done it. And I think the whole vaccination thing, I think Ron Rivera wants him to get vaccinated before he even considers it. Dallas is another interesting place, but Mike McCarthy, I think, already kind of shut that down. And it seems like Cam Newton wants to go to a place where he can actually start instead of be a backup, but I don't think that's going to happen. And I think if I had to predict, I think a team that would fit Cam Newton really good would be Seattle. He could be behind Russell Wilson. They kind of run a similar offense, not the same exactly, but I feel like if Russell Wilson went down, the Seahawks could tailor their offense toward Cam Newton, and Cam Newton would actually have some weapons to throw to, unlike in New England. I think another place, too, to be more like a backup would be maybe Miami. I don't know who I forgot who their backup quarterback is, but I think that would be
Jacoby Brissett.
Oh, yeah, exactly. I totally forgot about that. But that would be a good place as well, even though I do think Brissett's a good quarterback, and I think Indy made a bad decision of letting him go.
Yeah.
Or what was that?
Well, what about Houston? I mean, that would make a lot of sense too, right? I mean, you got Tyrod there, but I mean, we don't know how he was going to play. I mean, if Cam goes to Houston, he might have a chance to play some games.
Yeah, I forgot about Houston. To be honest with you, I kind of forgot they even.
Everyone forgot about Houston, so you don't have to feel bad. Everyone forgets about Houston.
Yeah, they're gonna be horrible even if Deshaun Watson plays, I feel like. But speaking of Deshaun Watson, where do you think he'll get traded? Or
I mean, he might. I mean, what's that one movie called with Adam Sandler when they're in the penitentiary?
Longest Yard.
There you go. He might start for that team. No, I'm just kidding. Honestly, I don't know. It's just the whole situation is odd, right? I mean, he showed up. I mean, but he's got all these crazy criminal charges again. I don't know if they're even criminal charges, right? But you have a lot of people saying things that he did, and I won't go into it. But to me, I don't think he's going to play this year.
Yeah, it's sad because Deshaun Watson's a very good quarterback, and even before I think in January or February after they hired David Culley, he wanted out of there because he didn't have a say in the coaching to hire. And it's interesting because the Texans, before all this started happening, didn't want to trade Deshaun Watson. And I wonder how many teams were actually interested in trading for Deshaun Watson, because they would have probably had to trade for most part the farm. But
yeah, well, I mean, we got to let's think about it. I mean, there was multiple teams that were interested in trading for Deshaun Watson. One being the Niners, the other one being the Dolphins. And with the whole Dolphins situation, I'll tell you a little bit. I was told by someone that's close to that Dolphins organization and was around the players. They said that Tua didn't work hard. He wasn't practicing hard, wasn't studying the playbook enough. And that's the reason why they kept on pulling him and putting in Ryan Fitzpatrick. What was the other team? I think at one point, maybe the Eagles were they're still trying to trade for him, right? But they don't know what they're doing yet. They just named Jalen Hurts a team captain. So who knows what's going to happen with that quarterback situation. But there was multiple teams, and I bet you anything, they do regret not trading Deshaun Watson when they could have.
Yeah, and I really wonder how many teams were actually interested. I mean, the Dolphins seemed like they were invested pretty well in trying to make a move for Watson. I think Washington would make a lot of sense, but
Well, what team had a lot of draft capital going into the draft? It was the Niners. It was what was it? The Jets was the other team. I'm sorry, I forgot about the Jets.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was multiple teams that wanted to trade for him, but I think the whole situation, they just didn't know, like, is this true? Is it not true? Should we trade him? Should we not trade him? This reminds me a lot of the year where Peyton Manning got hurt and the Colts they were horrible. And then they ended up with the number 1 overall draft pick. And, obviously Peyton left to Denver and he won a Super Bowl in year 2 and with the Broncos. So I don't know, man. We'll see.
Yeah. And I think it would have been interesting to see because Miami would have made a lot of sense. And I think I didn't really know about the whole Tua situation. I knew the Dolphins weren't invested, and he definitely did not look great last year. Yeah. But I didn't know about the whole not working hard, not studying the playbook. That's very interesting. And I really wonder if that's because that doesn't seem like it seems like Tua is a really hardworking guy, but I mean, it definitely showed in the games that he did not play well and did not look like an ideal quarterback, because at one time he was projected to be the number 1 overall pick before Joe Burrow came onto the scene. But I mean, it was just something that was told to me. He's like, hey, look, this is what's going on. Players are coming up to me and they're telling me this. So that's why they kept on pulling him and putting Ryan Fitzpatrick. And then obviously week 17 last year, Ryan Fitzpatrick, I believe he contacted COVID, or he was around someone with COVID. So they had no choice but to start Tua, and they ended up losing the game and not making the playoffs. So, I mean, we'll see. I mean, the jury's still out on Tua. Yeah. I think this year is going to definitely be a make it or break year. I think teams, should be a little more patient toward Tua, but I think this is going to be a make it or break year for the Dolphins because they have the team, I think, around Tua to be a good team. I mean, they just drafted his former teammate in Jalen Waddle with the 6th overall pick. So I think the Dolphins definitely, if Tua doesn't play well this season, I think they're definitely going to go and try to get another quarterback probably in the free agency or something. But again, this has been a great interview. But before we end, do you want to talk more about your podcast? Anything you have in store for the future?
Yeah, so we actually have a show every night of the week on our Instagram page or Facebook page. We do fantasy football as well. We do our Sunday pregame show, which I host on Sundays at 8 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. We have a lot of great content. Again, I would invite you to go to EastWestFootballNetwork.com and then also subscribe to our podcast, East West Football Podcast. We're on Spotify, Apple iTunes, anything you can think of, we're on there. So definitely give us a follow, listen to our podcast. We got a lot of great content coming up this year.
Okay. All right, guys, don't forget to check out the East West Football Podcast. Everything will be in the description down below. And thanks for coming on, and have a wonderful night.
Thank you.